Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Dry Hops, a presentation of Drag Racing's Golden Era. My name is Randy Herpel. I'm the editor-in-chief here. In the booth, as always, is my brother Thad. He's engineering the program, and he's got a few new responsibilities that we've given him, which is to be our graphic overlay editor and also our media editor. And our key grip and stunt coordinator for tonight's program is Mike Couch. Tonight, our topic is the end of Top Gas. Whoa, that was cool. Did you do that? What was that? The God voice. Hey, I like to let's do that again. The end of Top Gas. Whoa, that's pretty cool stuff. I'm glad I got you as an engineer. The God voice. What are we going to discuss about Top Gas? How many of you even remember Top Gas? I don't remember Top Gas because it went away before I was old enough to even know anything. I'm 55 and Top Gas ended in 71. But Top Gas was a really cool class, and we're going to get into how it started, some of the names and the cars, some of the developments, some of the exotic things that were done in Top Gas, and Top Gas and why it ended. The nitromethane ban basically was the starting point for Top Gas. You basically have to go back to 1957 and find out where Top Gas began. It began with a guy by the name of Emery Cook, who set a world speed record of 166 miles an hour. Be honest, it was 166.97 with an ET of 10.02. Basically stunned everybody. Now, everyone thinks that Wally Parks came in and banned nitromethane across the country at all NHRA events and tracks. That's not exactly how it happened. CJ Hart, for basically financial reasons for the competing drivers, decided that it was going to get too expensive with these exotic fuels and banned nitromethane at his track. Then got the Southern California group of tracks together and they all had a meeting and decided to ban it there too. Then Washington got involved and they decided to ban it there too. And what essentially happened was all these track owners got together, sent Wally Parks an ultimatum and said, if you don't ban nitromethane, we're pulling our tracks out of your NHRA lineup. And Wally gave in, and thus nitromethane was banned in 1957, which meant the only fuel available for a dragster was gasoline. Now, with all of this in mind, we can clearly see that Wally Parks wasn't the Satan that everybody made him out to be at the time. His hands were tied, and essentially to try and keep the NHRA operating as a nationwide functioning sanctioning body, he had to give in to the demands. So, everybody who has hated Wally Parks over the years for the nitro ban, you can kind of back off now, okay? It wasn't really Wally's fault. Matter of fact, I think Wally, when the whole thing happened, was racing down in Florida or someplace out east and didn't even know what was going on out in the West Coast tracks. It wasn't until he got done racing that he found out. So he was taken by surprise just like everyone else was. The nitromethane ban really didn't do anything good for the sport at all. And as a matter of fact, those tracks that banned nitromethane out on the West Coast lifted their ban before the NHRA did. Wally Parks hung on a little bit too long for that fuel ban. But the good thing that did come out of the fuel ban was the U.S. Fuel and Gas Championships. That race is hallowed by all who love drag racing history. So, Wally Parks lifted the nitro ban at the beginning of 1963, which meant that all these dragsters that wanted to run nitro and were running gasoline were going back to nitro. However, there were still a lot of dragsters that were running gasoline that were perfectly happy to run gasoline, and thus was the Top Gas category carried on through the 60s and into early 71. Nitro and Top Gas ran side by side. At times, Nitro and Gas ran as Top Eliminator against each other, which caused all kinds of confusion, as you can imagine. Here's Bob Moravez, aka Floyd Lippincott Jr., to tell us a little bit about that era of Top Eliminator and the confusion that went along with it.
Well, Wally told me that basically you had the same kind of cars that Top Gas went not quite as fast, not quite as quick, and not quite as noisy.
Yeah.
And they had to eliminate something because of the time restraints, everything, and advertising also to remember. That was just when big corporations start to jump in on it.
Yeah.
Mattel Toys was the first one with McEwen and Prudhomme. And so you start having non-automotive sponsorship coming in. And their number one question, well, who's the winner?
Yeah.
The car that goes the fastest and the car that makes the most noise and has the biggest billboard. Like that's how come funny cars kind of almost put Top Fuel in the weeds.
Yeah.
Do you remember one time at Bristol, Tennessee, where they actually had an overall eliminator where they had a funny car and a Top Fuel racing for overall eliminator? Funny car got a head start by a tenth.
Yeah.
They took an average of the ET difference, and that gives the funny car. So there, you're talking about danger.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a Top Fuel car roaring up, and if you might lose control and sees a guy out there and trying to run him down, boy.
Even though there seemed to be some confusion at times at races about who the overall winner was it Top Fuel? Was it Top Gas? Was it Top Eliminator? The class of Top Gas carried on through the 60s and up to 1971. During this period of time, the look and feel and just the speed and everything about these gas dragsters changed. Now, there were many guys who stayed with single engine cars, but you saw an uptick in the number of cars that started putting two engines in. As we got close to 1971, there were quite a few different twin engine cars that were running. And just a small list of those cars, for example, is Dale Funk in the English Frakes and Funk car running Chryslers, top speed 209.79, ET 7.18. Walt Rhodes in the freight train running two Chryslers, 200.44 miles an hour at 7.095 seconds. You had Bob Moravez in the freight train in 1970 running 214 at a 6.85. That's in 1971. Bill Mullins in the tank in 71 running 196 miles an hour at 6.955. You had Ray Moats in the Moats and Williams twin Chrysler car in 70 running 211 at 7.039. Dale Funk in the English Funk and Frakes car in 71 ran 209 at 7.185. And then you had the legendary Shirley Muldowney in the Double Trouble car with Chevys in it in 69 running 200 miles an hour at 7.50. And Sam Davis in the freight train in 70 running 207 at 7.65. That's just a small list of some of the twin engine cars that were out there at the time. And as you can see, those numbers are comparable to where Top Fuel was running at the time. They were running probably 220 to 230 miles an hour and putting in at about 6.2, 6.1, hanging right around in that area at that period of time. There were a lot of famous names that ran in the Top Gas class in the late 60s up to 71. Some of the names are Floyd Lippincott or Bob Moravez, the Gas House Gang, Moats and Williams. Everybody remembers the Odd Couple running two different engines. Tony Waters, the Hummel brothers, Bob Noyce, Jim Butcher, who went on to run Top Fuel with his Chevy Power, Jimmy Scott, Don Rasmussen, Ernie Hall, Earl Page, Dave Grassi, Walt Austin, Phil Hobbs, Jim Minnick, Rich Rogers, and one name that I came across that I did not know this was Eddie Hill, who got his running in Top Gas. Now let's move forward to 1970. By all accounts, 1970 was sort of a pivotal year for the NHRA. The fledgling class of funny car, which had run sporadically and was doing match racing and things like that, was now officially brought into the NHRA as an official class and run at national events. Also, 1970 was the first year that Pro Stock was brought in as an official class in the NHRA. So now what you've got is you've got Top Fuel, Top Gas, Funny Car, and Pro Stock all running pro categories. Well, I talked to Steve Gibbs today on the phone to ask him about this very subject. And we discussed why did Top Gas really have to come to an end. And what he said was actually a fairly simple answer. You didn't need two dragster classes running pro, essentially running the same type of speed and time at these national events. So the decision was made that, the nitro cars were a little bit more exciting and that Top Gas would be moved down to Comp Eliminator and not a pro class anymore. Now, some people were unhappy about that, and the move was difficult for some people because the cost of switching from Top Gas to Top Fuel was, it was a pretty significant one as far as parts for the car. It wasn't that much more expensive to build a Top Fuel car, but because you were running nitro, you were burning up more parts in the car. So there were a lot of people that just stepped out. Bob Moravas told me that at that point, instead of running Comp Eliminator where you're basically handicapped and you're screaming up the track behind somebody, and he thought it was unsafe, Peters and him just decided, you know what, we're just going to hang it up. We're not going to race this car anymore. And that's what happened. So we bring it up to 1971, and the class of Top Gas officially goes away as an NHRA Pro class. It was an interesting time in drag racing. During the Pro Gas, toward the end of the Pro Gas era, I'd like to say, because of the twin engine cars, and I think Bob Moravas referred to them as monsters of the Midway. They attracted a lot of attention. They were really cool to look at. They were fast cars, but unfortunately, the NHRA didn't need to have that fourth pro category, so Top Gas came to an end. And this is right about the same time that so many different revolutions happened in drag racing as a whole. Within another year, you've got the switch over to rear engine Top Fuel dragsters. Funny Car really comes into its own. You've got the Pro Stock class. And also, as Bob Moravas mentioned earlier, you've got sponsorship that is no longer automotive based. Outside corporations that are starting to come in and put sponsorship on these cars. So not only did Top Gas come to an end in 71, but as many of you know, in 72, at the end of 72, I believe with the closing of Lions, you really had a complete changeover in the way drag racing operated and how it ran as a sport. Now, it was sad to see Top Gas go away, but I fully understand why it wasn't needed anymore. And with everything, all things come to an end eventually, and Top Gas had to go. And it did, and it was great while it lasted, and some of the really cool cars that were out there, really enjoyed watching them. I wish that I would have been old enough to really see some of these cars run instead of now seeing them, cackling at nostalgia events. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the history of Top Gas, how it started and how it ended. We are always glad that you're here with us at Drag Racing's Golden Era, and this concludes another episode of Dry Hops. Next week, we're going to be back with another episode. I haven't decided what the topic's going to be. There's so many topics out there to choose from. We might actually talk about wheel pants on the front of cars, but I'm not positive about that. We'll figure out what we're going to do. For all of our interviews and to see any other episodes of Dry Hops as they go up, as always, you can go over to drge68.com. And hey, I told you I wanted a graphic put up when I said that. So, no, I need a graphic up so people can read it. Well, I don't need to just say it. I want to read it too. So go over to Okay, really, don't put it over my face like that. I thought you were in charge of the graphics. Put it down. Put it down. 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 I don't want it over my face. Good grief. How hard is it to put a graphic up? Go to drge68.com, or you can find us our social media page at Drag Racing's Golden Era 60s to the 80s on Facebook. We have a public page there. We also have a private group under the same name where you can go join, and then you can share your own pictures. People get a little confused why we have a page and a group, but the group is for people to join that want to share their own pictures and enjoy the pictures of others. That's why we have that as a private group. So, those pictures don't get spread all over the internet. You can share them and not worry about people copying them and putting them up other places. So I would like to thank you all for being here. And okay, don't put the credits up yet. I'm not done. I'm going to have to replace you. Get your act together. Thank you. As always, we would like to thank you for being here, and we hope to see you next time. Oh, for crying out loud. You got to be kidding me.